watching YouTube, Facebook, and stuff like that. This is the inaugural episode of the what would hope to be a new show called Kaleb on the Couch with Cool People. Who knows if it'll actually get anywhere, but maybe my first guest can make that happen for me. He is a Grammy-nominated, super world-famous person in some places, not everywhere, but some places. Original lead singer of the Newsboys and co-founder of the same band, Mr. John James. Welcome to the show.
G'day, mate.
Hey, how you doing? Good to see you, man.
Thanks for kind of letting me almost sit on the couch.
Yeah, well,
I got to progress to that stage.
Well, the show's called Kaleb on the Couch, so in talking with cool people. So I'll do the couch sitting, and you can do the
talking
part.
Right.
So here recently, there's been a lot of talk of the Newsboys, especially in like '90s groups on Facebook and social media. People talk a lot about groups that they loved from the '90s, and that would fit you into that category.
Right.
So I kind of had put it out there, online and on social media. Did anybody, I said I would be hanging out with John. Does anybody have any questions that they would have ever wanted to ask about, the Newsboys or about music in the '90s or so forth? And it was overwhelming. There was several hundred comments. So sorry guys, obviously we can't get through all of those. But honestly, a lot of those have been answered over time in different interviews you've done before.
Well, you have to save some questions for part 2 if you show success.
If I get at least 1 or 2 likes here, then maybe we'll do another one. The sequel, So first things first, people wanted to know who came up with the name for the band.
We always joke, I don't know if it's true or not, we always joke that, it was easy to spell. We were a bunch of boys. We're about spreading the good news, hopefully, and so the Newsboys came together. And that was it. I think if we were all girls, it would have been the News Girls.
It doesn't sound
as cool, but that's how we kind of came up with the Newsboys.
So easy to remember.
Yeah.
Super spiritual.
About spreading the good news.
Spreading the good news.
Boys, yeah.
Okay. So when you guys first came into the States, obviously you had a couple albums prior to really making it. And I think a lot of people contributed a lot of the '90s era Newsboys success to collaborating with guys like Steve Taylor. Now, Steve was one of those guys that still amazing artist, still a great guy. But how did you guys actually get hooked up with Steve?
Yeah, it was through the record label. We kind of felt, we had some ability to write the music, but we really we felt one of our weaknesses were our ability to write better crafted lyrics.
Right.
And we had admired Steve Taylor's work for some times, and personally we felt he was a lyrical genius. Mm-hmm. And so if someone in the record company knew him, that connected us with Steve, and we didn't know if it was going to work, the chemistry. But Steve was always a very creative, very quirky, very out there sort of guy. And the Newsboys, we were young and crazy and a little bit out there, and the chemistry, it just worked. And we would go to Steve and kind of say, all right, this is what we want to say. Can you show us how to say it and make it cool?
Right.
So he was really instrumental in regards to the lyrical side, and he helped produce several of our albums. And it was just one of those relationships that it just worked with Steve Taylor and the Newsboys, and it was pretty cool. Pretty cool chemistry.
Now, what was the first record that you guys did with Steve?
I think the first one was the Not Ashamed album.
Not Ashamed.
Yeah.
Great album. It still holds up, for what it's worth. I think first Christian rock cassette tape anybody ever gave me was a copy of Not Ashamed. And
good old cassettes, mate.
Yeah, I popped it in my Walkman.
What did you used to do if ever you're playing it and all the tape came out and got stuck in there?
Take a pencil and
try to unwind it. And if ever you had to do one of the cut and splice jobs and everything. Yeah.
I remember this could be said with a lot of different. You guys were very different. It wasn't like other stuff that I'd heard before. Of course, I grew up in the South, so a lot of stuff on the radio was Bill Gaither, that whole crowd, and a lot of praise and worship music and stuff like that as well. But somebody gave me a cassette tape of Not Ashamed, and I remember listening to it. The first track, "Can I Get You Out of My System?" I remember the first line is "Oi boy,"
right?
And it just oi boy, great record. I mean, the melodies, the music really stuck with you. I think someone actually had a question about a track on that. There's a song called Dear Shame.
Dear Shame.
And they wanted to know what's the, there's a sampling on there of a voice, a pastor saying there it is now, the power of God. Yeah. What is that from?
It was actually that was a pastor of a well-known big church in Australia. and it was just a message, one of his messages. And in the middle of it, he had a pretty sort of flamboyant and charismatic healing ministry, and it was just a snippet of one of his services where he was praying for people and sort of, as he was laying hands on them, it's sort of like, oh, here it comes out, a power God.
Yeah.
There it is. You born again, you are? Good. And it's sort of, that's how it came, and it just worked. It didn't work.
Definitely
So
worked.
we kind of just spliced it into this song, and it actually was pretty cool.
No, very cool video too.
Yeah.
Like very 90s record.
Yeah, we shot that in New Orleans.
Did you really?
Yeah, at a place where they stored all the Mardi Gras floats.
Really?
I
didn't know that.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
a bit
really
of
cool.
trivia.
Oh.
Yeah, and at a cemetery there somewhere also. 'Cause
Well,
there's crosses
all
and
over.
that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the floats and that was at a
Really?
place where they stored.
Wow, that's cool. That's
Mardi
really
Gras
cool.
floats, whether old one, broken ones,
Uh-huh.
whatever. But that's where we shot it. At one place where they store a bunch of Mardi Gras floats.
Huh.
Yeah.
We've been friends for how long? You've never told me you shot a music video in Louisiana? I guess you just didn't want me to know until
Actually, I just remembered that. I forgot about that. I don't know why. Maybe because I had Cajun gumbos today. Sort of, re-sparked something. In my
So,
mind.
and then of course, you guys did a DeArmo and Key cover on that album too, Boycott Hell. Another great band from the 80s, another Christian rock band from the 80s.
It was, it's pretty cheesy sometimes, some of the stuff. But back then you got to realise cheese was cool. And at the time we didn't know we were being cheesy, but looking back in hindsight, come on, has anyone ever been not guilty of, looking back in old photos of, when we were years ago, what we wore, what we listened to, the haircuts we have, and we're like, crikey, what was I thinking back then? It looked so cheesy, but at the time it was kind of cool,
They had someone had asked a question about it. You guys did an appearance about that time, so it might have been like in between. What was there? Boys Will Be Boys, Hellish Flips, and then Not Ashamed. But you guys were on Blaine Bartel's show,
Fire by Night.
Yeah. And it was you said before. You said it wasn't me wearing the overalls. It was Peter.
Yeah. No,
Peter
I've never worn overalls in my life or eyeliner.
or eyeliner.
Yeah.
But Peter had the flip the pack because somebody wanted to know like which New Kids on the Block music video inspired you guys the most to dress that way.
No, I think we were just shopping somewhere and maybe Peter got a discount on overalls. I don't know.
It was like, oh, we'll just wear this.
Yeah.
What was it like? Was that really
But it's
cool?
not like, come on, it's not like we were fashion gurus. We're a bunch of kids, and sometimes you're doing a video shoot and for a new clip or something, and someone from a record label that should not buy clothes for bands goes out and has a budget and buys a bunch of clothes that they think, hey, these will look cool on a band.
Yeah. So how did you end up? Is that kind of how you ended up with all the different? You had so many different multicolored suits.
Oh yeah, we started. It was for I think we started for the Take Me to Your Leader or Going Public tour. Yeah, I had my infamous suits. I had my silver suit, my gold suit, my red suit. I had a black suit, all different coloured suits that were sort of infamous to certain songs. I had my space suit I used to wear for Take Me to Your Leader and that.
So where did you actually get the suits from? Or was this?
We got them tailor made.
Somebody made them.
Oh yeah, tailor.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So
very exclusive.
So we'll talk about going public then. Something that I always thought when it came to going public was Shine. We've talked about the song Shine before. Obviously, everybody knows it. It's kind of other than Not Ashamed. It was like one of the most iconic Newsboys songs of all time. And we talked about how it was kind of like an accident.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, when we were cutting that album, I don't think Shine really existed. And I think we were taking a break, and from memory, if it serves me correctly, Jeff, our keyboard player, was getting ready, at lunchtime, he was having lunch and getting his keyboard, going through some patches, different sounds. And he was just scrolling through different sounds, and I think he played that sound and someone heard it, or Peter heard it, or someone, and I think they commented on what's that sound, and sort of Shine kind of grew out of the sound, and we ended up jamming and writing it on it and everything, and next thing, this extra song has been added on the album that when we went into studio to cut that album, didn't even exist.
Right.
And it was just like one of those things that just came together, and it went on to be one of the band's all-time iconic songs.
Oh yeah, I mean you had merch with Shine, like all over the shirt. I remember seeing those. I always felt though, because Going Public is a great record. It was a really good alternative rock record. Like, whether you appreciated Christian music or not, it was just a good record in general. But I always felt like Shine was so big that it kind of overshadowed everything else on the record. Like a lot of people can't tell you 2 songs off that album. Right. They can tell you Shine, but even though I think Shine is not the best song on the album,
Right.
They go through like, well, I don't really remember a lot of the rest of the album because of it. And do you feel the same way, or do you feel like there was better songs you like playing?
No, there were some very, very cool songs on that album, I think. It's funny, I think, someone was playing the album the other day. I was somewhere, whether it was at your church. I remember hearing the album play, and I'm like, oh, crikey, that's a cool song.
Yeah.
And there were like actually a few cool songs, several cool songs on that album.
Right,
like I said, Shine kind of took off with a life of its own.
Right.
And became that iconic song.
And it's very different from the rest of the album, too.
Yeah.
Like if you listen to the whole record all the way through, the record's full of a lot of good guitar grooves and bass grooves. And then Shine is very electronic, kind of driven. But I mean, it still helped kind of pioneer a cool sound and a cool appearance for the Newsboys, and it was on the radio all the time. It was like one of those Newsboys songs that they actually would play on the radio. So moving on to the mid to late '90s, my all-time favorite, and I think a lot of people would agree with me, I think the best Newsboys album of all time, staple album, the one that everybody remembers, every song, every word, Take Me to Your Leader.
Yeah, that was
iconic album.
That was a pretty cool album, and I think the tour was pretty legendary, and it was an amazing experience. Not only with the songs, but I think the stage show, the production, the whole concept, and it was just so much fun. I think every night it was a pretty awesome experience being on that tour, and a lot of fond memories, and it was an amazing experience.
So thanks to Shine being so big, you guys actually had a budget for the next tour.
Yeah.
But I remember going to see you guys in the '90s during Take Me to Your Leader. I had a T-shirt with an alien on it, stuff. But I remember you guys having spacesuits, like we talked about before. You had flying saucers on
that
stage.
we used to come down of, and we would come out of, like off them onto the stage, because the stage was done like an alien landscape, and then those spaceships would end up, and the bottom of them was like video projector screens. And it was awesome. But I remember at the start of that, I think, didn't we used to have a massive backdrop that hung with a giant question mark on it?
I don't remember.
Yeah, and the opening act used to play in front of that, because the giant question mark on this massive backdrop was, what have they got this tour, the production and everything. And then they would drop it, and you'd hear rumbling, and it was like some, theme from Star Wars that would start playing, and next thing the lights and these ships would come down out of the ceiling,
So what was your, talking about like opening acts and stuff, what was your favorite group to tour with?
Favorite opening act, and it's funny that we're opening because the guy is such an iconic entertainer in the music industry and pioneer. But we did a tour with Steve Taylor.
Okay.
Steve Taylor and his band, and he opened for us. And mate, that guy is such a talented guy. He's an amazing entertainer. I think it's very rare as the main act that you watch the opening act show every night. On that tour when he did, I watched his show every night and enjoyed it every night. So it was pretty cool touring with Steve Taylor. That was a pretty awesome experience.
So I gotta ask this question because it's a 90s Christian music question. People wanted to ask, did you ever do any shows with Carmen?
No, but we were mates with Carmen. When we first come to America, Carmen put us up in Tulsa at the hotel, and we went to some of his shows, and he really took us under his wing and believed in us, and he actually was a real the believer in the band and what we were doing and that. So Carmen was pretty cool. He was and he helped us out in the early days.
So Take Me to Your Leader, that whole era, I mean that was probably the biggest moment of the Newsboys for your era.
With the band, for me, when I was at the band, absolutely. That was definitely the pinnacle for my time, from day one up until that point.
So what's your your just greatest rock star type memory of your time in the Newsboys?
Ooh, rock star memory.
Rock star, just like the moment where you really realize,
a couple of things. There were a few things. Playing at Washington DC in front of the White House, in front of like 750,000 people. That was pretty amazing. First time ever playing at our biggest outdoor festival. Remember when we headlined at Creation Festival?
Okay,
to about 120,000 people at in
that's out on the East Coast, right? Okay,
Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Right.
That was an amazing experience. I remember that. We used to love playing Creation. I think the first time we ever filled. Our first time ever filling a 10,000 seater arena. And I think it was in Oregon. I think it was somewhere in Oregon. But I remember we were just on cloud nine. We just thought, man, we've arrived. But what's funny is you look back, I remember the first time we played a little venue and there was 150 people there and it was packed. And we thought, woo, we've arrived. Right. We packed it out, when you're starting off as kids, I think, no matter the journey, it never ceased to amaze me. And you felt so privileged to be able to play music and that actually people enjoyed your music enough to come out and pay money to come and hear your songs and see you play. Right. It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing.
So, given that you were in a band for a long time, you were in Newsboys for almost 2 decades, a question that probably gets asked a lot, if you ever get interviewed or people just want to know, what was your all-time favorite song to perform with the band?
I don't know if I had an all-time favorite one. Sometimes if you're on stage and if a song's not connecting as well as it should, if the song's just bombing, it's the longest 4.5 minutes of your life.
Right.
You're like, man, when's this going to be over? I just want to get on to the next song. And sometimes you can do a song that you've played hundreds of times before and you're sick of it, but the crowd is just getting into it and it feels like it's the first time you've ever played it. So I enjoyed whatever song that the crowd really got into and it went off,
So that being said, on the flip side, what was like the least favorite song to perform on the road?
I won't name any, but I wasn't a real ballad singer, so I always sort of struggled with ballads and stuff. So, but doing ballads weren't my favourite time of the evening. If I was forced to ever do a ballad, I felt like I was really vulnerable in that. So ballads weren't my cup of tea. So
couldn't do the Axl Rose sway back and forth and whistle, the bandanas.
Put my hip out. Yeah.
So okay, so we talked about some of the most iconic Christian rock albums of all time. Not just for the Newsboys, but Christian rock in general. You guys really made a statement. You know what I mean? You guys were obviously all over Christian radio, but like mainstream radio, except for a handful of songs off of "Take Me to Your Leader" that they wouldn't play on the radio. And I know because, like any good youth group kid in the '90s, I tried to get the Newsboys on my local radio station, and they wouldn't play "Breakfast" because it said something about breakfast in hell.
Oh no.
And God forbid we can't say hell on the radio. But I became a fan because of just how different things were, and it wasn't Carmen. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of like not to like throw shade on Carmen.
Carmen's cool
and everything that he did, but when I was younger, that was kind of all there was the Gaithers, and then Carmen kind of came out of Tulsa, Oklahoma with he was with Church on the Move, Willie George Ministries, and all those guys. And then, like I said, listening to like a Christian band, like not just a singer like Amy Grant and Michael W. Smith, which I love Michael W. Smith and Amy Grant, but like being able to hear a full band play, and it was different, and it had that edgier sound, and it sounded more like people put music together, not like somebody created it for them or whatever, But Take Me to Your Leader, iconic album, and alongside the album, one of the greatest band movies ever made. or not, but you guys made a movie to tie in with the record. How in the world did that happen?
Yeah, some things weren't meant to happen, but I think there was some clever person at the record company that realized that we had some budget left over for that year, and instead of just keeping the budget and putting it towards something else awesome, they decided, hey, I know, we can use this money to make a movie. And certain things I think should never happen is one of those certain things is bands should stick to playing music and not try to act. Yeah, fair enough making a video clip, but yeah, I think the cheese meter was on 12, but we made this crazy movie down under the big top and that, and hey, you know what can I say? Hey, we made a movie, good, bad, terrible, cheesy, what? At least I can say, cool, I was in a movie. Maybe a bad movie, but at least I can say, I made a movie.
You have a credit there,
Yeah.
So was there any truth in the movie at all, or was it
Of course.
all of it was true?
Absolutely.
So you really do have
life-changing.
You really had an uncle Luigi that had a...
Hang on, my manager's waving at me. I'm not to answer that question.
Okay, I'm sorry about
that. No? Okay, no. Yes, sorry.
Sorry, no, I'll decline
Just copyright and stuff.
Something that kind of like popped up too in the movie was Phil Joel coming along, and he kind of came in between going public and taking your leader, right? Now you guys went through how many bass players? 30. 30. three well known though, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking about Kevin, who was the bass player in that was in the movie.
Kevin was.
And he tragically passed.
Yeah, Kevin was tragically killed in a motorbike accident.
Oh, wow. Man, I always hate hearing stuff like that. Sean, though.
Was the original bass player.
And we were talking about this one day. He said he left to go teach or something like that. He was
Sean went back to teaching in Australia, and with that's what he did. Yeah, but Sean was with the band for some time, from the formation for several years. Yeah.
Now, between the three guys, which one was your favorite?
All of them.
All of them.
All of them. Loved them all.
Loved them all. Now, Phil obviously brought probably a new dynamic too.
He
sang a lot.
Yeah,
right?
and I don't know if everyone knows this, but you know what Phil's profession was before he was a musician? He was a hairdresser.
Really?
Yes.
I'm not just trying. Not a joke.
No, I joke about a lot of stuff. He was a hairdresser. Phil used to do all our hair in the band. Not that he had to do mine, but he would like dye everyone's. He was a hairdresser. And he was a musician also. Really? And he was in a band, and we met him in New Zealand opening. His band opened for us when we played in New Zealand once. That's how we met Phil and connected with Phil, and eventually got him to play with the band. But he was a hairdresser.
Now, I've never heard this before.
Oh, there you go.
This is first time.
And I've had suspicions about Phil, and I toured with him for quite a few years. I'm still suspicious if that's his real hair or not, or it's a wig. If it's a wig, it's a good one, and he's kept that well hidden. I don't want to start any rumours, but I don't know. I got suspicions there if that's his real hair.
Well, Phil, if you do end up watching this video somehow or another, brother, you have gorgeous hair, and it
beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. So moving right along, let's talk about your exodus from the group. Now, did you actually go into the studio with the guys when they were getting ready?
Well, we started to work, and obviously it was the very early stages. But we were in the studio starting to cut Step Up to the Microphone album, and that's when everything abruptly came to an end for me. But hey, that's life, and I was with the band for over 16 years, and it was an amazing journey. And would have been people might say, do you have regrets? No, I don't really have regrets. I think, we all have things in our life that we can look back and in hindsight think, man, I wish I did this better, or I wish they did that better, or I wish someone helped me here, or I wish I did that. But you can't change the past. Right. And you can't go back and do things differently. It is what it is. But I'm very happy in my life now. I've been given an awesome opportunity in life to do what I do now, and that band, I don't look back on my time with the Newsboys with regret. It was the most incredible experience in my life, and it was a roller coaster experience. So kind of my time in the music industry is kind of like represents the best time of my life and the most tragic time of my life. But in spite of that, it was a life-changing experience. And I'm still amazed when I travel around and I meet people today, years later, that were kids at the time, and come up and say, oh, we saw you years ago at this show, and your concert, your music really impacted my life, and really helped me. And that never ceases to amaze me, Power of music to inspire somebody.
One single thing you did that just makes an impact forever.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So a lot of people have heard your story, and obviously we don't have enough time in the world to really get into a lot of stuff. They heard your testimony and trials you went through and stuff, but then overall things got way better, and God's doing some awesome things in your life now. But there was a question that someone had asked, and they felt to ask that, did you ever wish the band would have waited for you? I
think, again, in carrying on from what I said a moment ago, things happen, and you can always look back and think, I wish we did this, I wish they did that, I wish this would happen, but it is what it is.
It is what it is.
And I'm not the sort of person that I live my life with regret. I don't live my life with resentment and animosity and bitterness. That sort of stuff will, put you in the grave quick.
So a couple more questions and we'll call it quits for the interview. So, but obviously the Newsboys are on a reunion tour.
Woo! Yeah.
and people were wondering, where's John James?
Oh look, man, I would have loved to be on the reunion tour, but the reality is I put on too much weight and I can't fit in my gig clothes now. All right, and no one wants to see some guy out there trying to, bulging out of his gig clothes, jumping around the stage like
No,
me,
probably not. No.
So, but no, who knows? Hey, they're doing a reunion tour, and I've learned in life never to say never, because sometimes life has a quirky way of bringing amazing situations and scenarios into our life. Maybe one day I may be out there, who knows, maybe, I might crack out the gold and silver suit again and be jumping around on stage singing Shine and Take Me to Your Leader,
So somebody asked a question. They said, Michael Tate is now the lead singer of the Newsboys. He has been for a few years now. And obviously DC Talk is not really doing anything other than they put on a cruise once a year, But they said, how much money would it take for John James to now become the lead singer of DC Talk and just throw a wrench into the machine?
Man, mate, I just broke out in a sweat thinking about that. There's certain things that should never happen, all right? And that is one thing. It's like, man, I don't have a rapping ability bone in my body, and that would be the worst experience, mate. I would hate to just crucify any DC Talk music,
There you go.
Me rapping would be a bad experience. So
less people every night.
That's not a good thought. Whoever asked that, there's not enough money in the world. I mean that'll never happen. Yeah.
All right, so wrapping things up. What have you been up to lately? Are you going to be ever doing music again? And what have you been up to?
I've been traveling around speaking a lot, and I've been doing that. I enjoy that. I do a lot of stuff in schools, a lot of stuff speaking. Like I'm here this week in your mighty city, and then I head off back down to Florida for a couple of months speaking and music. I haven't done music for a long time, but I'm actually getting back into the studio now with a good mate of mine, another Aussie mate, incredibly gifted, talented musician and singer. But we're getting into studio now and getting into some awesome stuff. So
that's exciting.
I'm actually excited about getting into the studio this year and doing some awesome music. Hopefully the cheese meter will not be on 12 and we might actually be able to write some interesting music.
Awesome. Man, I'm excited, dude. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for taking some time to
Thanks for letting me be the first guest on your exclusive show, Kaleb on the Couch. And I look forward to maybe doing it again another time.
John, thanks again, brother.
I'm out of here, mate. It's all yours.